Hey everybody, this is Rydo, and today we're starting a game coverage of a game called Valley. Valley was made in, I believe, let me double check, 2016 by Blue Isle Studios, which is a small little Toronto, Canada indie game development company most famous for making the successor to Slender the Eight Pages, Slender the Arrival. They also made a game called Citadel Forged with Fire in 2017 and Broomstick League in 2019. This is, by definition, I think, going to either be a single A game or a double A game, or maybe there's basically no games that are being labeled as indie games anymore or single A games anymore, and they're just called indies now. The difference is, once we actually start to look at this, even if this is kind of an indie game, it's not going to be a kind of low effort indie. It might be a little bit asset flippy, but it's not going to, it's actually trying to make a game and not just try to sell something for 69 cents on Steam and trick a few people into buying it. But I can definitely see that there's a lack of polish in this game, even in the beginning, in that the audio is way inaccurate. So the music volume slider, as it is, let's go ahead and turn this down some. The music volume slider, as soon as you move it, turns off the music, so you can't actually adjust the audio at all. And it's so loud on the music in the menu that there's really no adjustment you can do outside of the game to guarantee you've got the music balanced with the master volume. Because obviously you would want to be able to hear the movement up and down this in the menu in the sound effects, but you would also want to balance that with the music, and you just can't do any of that. You also have this weird replay narrative elements, which I don't know what that would mean in your first playthrough. I'm not going to try and adjust anything else. You can see in this menu even, it gets like louder than before. Here is a bit of a spoiler about what we're actually going to be doing, in the fact that there is a run button, a move button, a look, a jump, and interact, and then a give and take life button. And then I just have all the graphics set to as high as they can go. No very high settings here. Really. Motion blur I'd like off. Anti-aliasing I want as high as possible. It does seem like some of these settings just aren't saving also. So I think that's all the setup we really need to do, at least to start. We'll probably have to adjust the audio in-game after this. So, interesting thought. The character for your character could be male or female. If you're going to be giving and taking life, I think that's a feminine attribute. Although, in all fairness, males also contribute to the concept of giving and taking life. So, but I think female is my default when choosing a character. The life seed is said to contain an incredible earth-shattering power. While mostly written off as a myth, some archaeologists are determined to track down the elusive item, luring some to incredibly remote locations.
Looks like I missed you. I just wanted to wish you luck before you headed out. I still can't believe you're doing this. I mean, hunting down what was it? The life seed? You gotta admit, that sounds crazy. I mean, even if this mythological thing that can shatter worlds or whatever actually exists, what are the chances of you tracking down this ancient relic in the middle of the Rocky Mountains? Listen, I know you want to prove the thing exists. I get that. It's an adventure. Hell, it's your career, but
it's just effectively a still screen that you're just zooming out on, even though it has a blinking 12 number.
If by some miracle you find this thing and become the most famous archaeologist of all time, beers are on me. I'll even trade in your tinfoil hat for a whip and fedora. I just really hope all those canoeing lessons pay off.
That's a pretty good setup. Certainly you would see a lot of other games just try to do that same setup in a still screen. Uh, and you can see the graphics look good. And this would have been before we've hit the point like we now have in 2020 where asset flip games can just buy Unity assets or Unreal Engine assets from a storefront and make a game look this good without putting any real gameplay in it. See, useless discount canoe lessons. So there is one thing about that screen I would say that does come into play in the fact that it did feel very much like that was all partially targeting the idea of eventually porting this to a cell phone, and this game was ported to a cell phone at some point. I guess that would be about the place you'd crash your canoe. Surprising that they even made it to it. And then we have this central dot, which sometimes I like that, sometimes I don't. We are supposed to be able to jump with A, but I'm pressing A and it's not working. We could try Y, and a give and take life hasn't happened yet. We're gonna walk down an area. I don't think, to mention, I don't think I'd ever bother to play the Slender games, since Slender to 8 pages is effectively just a random placement of 8 collectible pages. It doesn't make a lot of sense. Ruins cave drawings. Where the heck am I? So they say your character's female, but then everything is just popping up in your head with probably less than a dozen lines of spoken dialogue. There's the cave paintings. I would say that this is fairly slow, the speed we're walking at, but I can hold the right trigger to run. I can't interact with this, and it feels like we're sinking into the floor. Like, let's just stand here for a second. Doesn't that feel like we are rather short? Yeah, like shorter than you would assume you would be. Sometimes games' perspectives definitely do feel like that, where you feel like you're just getting shorter and shorter. Yeah, I remember when this game came out, it caught my attention, and it got promoted by the mainstream video game journalist media, as they were. Now it tells you to run. And they hyped it for a week or two, and then they forgot about it and moved on to the next big thing. Yeah, doesn't it just look like my character is short? It's probably because we're going to get from the logo some kind of movement suit, like a exoskeleton type piece of equipment that will make us taller and then balance out the perspective. They probably balanced out the perspective for that point, and we can already see that if there is going to be an exoskeleton and we have a magical life seed in an ancient ruins with cave drawings, we are mixing magic with science to begin with, to at least a certain extent. This is pretty, but it's kind of nothing. So that they're just, I imagine, trying to establish this is what you would expect to see in an indie game. It's just very linear cave walking, linear gameplay. Let's see. We'll turn the music volume up and see if it ever comes on. A is jump. I did turn off motion blur, so that, but I generally do like motion blur turned off. But what I did not see there, unless I just totally missed it, is there, yeah, there's no option here to remove the central dot. And that's really what I would like to see removed. And it's not an option, unfortunately. I could change the field of view, and that probably would be nicer. So yeah. Now we're into bigger areas, more green areas full of life, more grass rendering. And in all fairness, this probably was a slightly difficult to run game when it first came out with a GTX 2080 RTX, though it probably won't give me much trouble at all. Although there is also that possibility always of it just not being programmed very smoothly. Um, that is always a danger of playing old games that can sell themselves fairly well because they can look very pretty in screenshots or pre-rendered cutscenes or pre-rendered demo footage as trailers, but in reality, an average computer may chug along at 15 frames per second and not be able to show any of the detail at all. It definitely feels like there should be some music playing right now, and I was thinking that the music would fade in. Otherwise, the only thing I think I could do, and I did it several times already, was to jump out of the entire game, load it after setting the music volume, and then load back into the game. That it seems like that's kind of a terrible system if that's really how this is going to go. I could try to blame my own equipment and say that because I'm listening um, to the game audio through a Blue Yeti microphone, that there might be an argument that maybe there's an incompatibility there, but that's not realistic at all. I've never had any problem with audio playing back, and it really wouldn't make any sense because I am still hearing the side effects. So it does seem like either the music crashes and then takes a sweet time to fade back in, or it just crashes and it never fades back in. So we found a tree that from the top would look just like a regular tree, and from the base it looks like it's a fairly magical tree with floating giant fireflies and vines going everywhere. And here we have a rock. That was weird. So look what happens when I just walk forward. That is weird how the character is like automatically moving on his own. I can't interact with these, but they do seem to get brighter when you walk towards them. So these probably are the collectibles throughout the game. In a weird way, this might be described as a game, if it plays the way I think it might play, that is a 3D version of Pac-Man, in which you're running around and trying to collect pellets. And yeah, because I can't really jump, I can't really get up there. Okay, we have a little sound effects when we walk in the bushes. So I wouldn't call that Bush League programming. But this will be one of those games almost certainly where we see only very scripted animals. If we see any animals, there won't be any procedural AI creatures. We probably won't run into too many humans, if we run into any humans at all. It's going to be a fairly lonely experience. And while you can put bird noise in the background like they are now, and the sound of flowing water, to try to make a forest feel alive, a lot of times when smaller companies make games like this, it does often feel like it is a fairly empty, oddly empty world. Although, in this case, finally the music kicks in, and I guess that's going to be as good as we get. Here we have some pots, and there's some butterflies, or rabbits, or Ghosts of Rabbits. I don't even know what that is. Uh, then we have creepy masks with skulls embedded in it. I think this is probably a direct reference to Hellraiser 1. There was this tower with people's faces and bodies trapped in it. So it is a little beckoning, squeaky creature. They've run right up to me, and they're telling me to follow them. And so, as any good gamer would do, we'll ignore that, and we'll see what we can do. Can we break our legs? Oddly, no sound effect when we fell. But we did get sound effects when we walked, and then the music faded in for half a second and then faded out. What is this place? How hard did I hit my head? I was wondering if maybe I'm supposed to hit Y or something when I pick up those potential like prompts. Maybe that would make you say those things out loud. So yeah, these kind of look like forest spirits. That'd be my best guess. And yeah, the AI and pathing on them is having them basically run back and forth to try and breadcrumb you and tell you to go this way. And these vines, I guess, are supposed to catch our attention, but then you have the typical video game issue of them clipping right through them. And yeah, by modern standards, that is a pretty low texture. I could see a remaster just touching up that one graphical element and it improving quite a bit. From a distance though, they don't look too bad. We have some mushrooms. They're glowing as a light source to tell us to go this way. Always follow the glowing lights in video games. I'm playing this game particularly since I just finished playing a programming game that was rather frustrating. And so I wanted something that was more of a simplistic equivalent to a first-person shooter. Here's some film canisters, and I would assume that means it's a USSR truck. An old army truck. Must have crashed here years ago. Maybe time is more fluid in this area. Like, we don't know what the story really is, so we don't have a clue. Cargo manifest. The following items are stored securely at the Sector 6 storage and handling facility: 1 leaf suit belonging to Private First Class Edwin Hall, 20 audio recording reels belonging to Virginia King, and 3 bundles of documentation. And you just hover over that. The interact button doesn't do anything. So yeah, I wanted something more simplistic, more action-y to play, and this game I think will suit me well for this. I guess this might be the leaf suit. Can we read it anywhere to find out that? No. And I guess the idea here is I can't just walk on this platform, which it seems like that is intentionally there, so you could walk up there, and if you can't do that, then that is an indication that somebody else escaped this crash a long time ago and left the suit. Press Y to pick up the leaf suit. Looks like a mechanical suit. And so we put it on and we get a very Bioshock-esque video as we're putting it on, which is weird. And
Well,
kind of uninspired.
As a pathfinder, you will be tasked with operating and testing the newly developed L.E.A.F suit as our hard-working scientists at Pendulum develop new ways to empower our troops fighting the war in Europe. With the power of the L.E.A.F suit, you will be able to perform unimaginable feats. Leaping high into the air. Sprinting as quickly as a cheetah. Even manipulating life and death itself are part of the many stunts accomplished by the L.E.A.F suit. In addition to these marvelous wonders, an audio reel recorder built directly into the suit allows a pathfinder to conveniently listen to important intelligence, hands-free during training exercises. And don't forget to keep an ear out for new upgrades available for your suit, as our scientists continue looking for new ways to
Kind of feels like the guy that is being depicted there is more Chinese.
as you test the limits of this amazing new technology.
Which then why would it be in English? Although, why would it be in English anyways if it was a Russian suit? And the camera subtly zoomed in there. Let's see what this old, what's on this old audio reel.
Virginia King, Audio Journal, June 4th, 1941. Shortly after the outbreak of war in Europe, I was enlisted by the Army to study the history of this valley. The mysterious forest sprites seem to be the last living remnants of the long-lost culture that once lived here. A large number of them seem to inhabit the northeast sector of the valley, just past the ruins where the life seed, rumored to possess an earth-shattering power, was found. That's
So
as good a
now we
place
have
as
a
any to
quest.
study them.
The life seed actually exists. So we got a lot of heads-up display now. So now when you look down, you've got this big old mechanical leg. Let's start with the first question here. How would you be able to suck and give life? That needs to be explained more than anything. You can see the jump here is very high, and the idea of being able to run super fast and jump is not kind of the best system that you could give humans, because humans have spent their entire lives like knowing how to walk in their regular abilities and their regular bodies. So it kind of doesn't make a lot of sense. And having such a high area that you can jump on, this is probably a game you could speed run quite a lot, because you could probably very easily, oh, this is like a snake statue, could very easily just jump and reach very high things. And we are an Indiana Jones style person, which maybe that puts us in not great company if we compare ourselves to Indiana Jones, since he is kind of a terrible archaeologist and a terrible skeptic, in the fact that he kind of in constant willful ignorance of what he sees in front of him is still a atheist after the events of the first movie, in which he literally finds the Ark of the Covenant and sees a godlike power. Like, it really does not make any sense for him to be as skeptical as he is when they get to the third movie, and he sees godlike power in the second movie too. So he should be completely willing to believe anything anybody claims could be possible after the events of even the first movie. Yeah, they've kind of made a game here. I can't jump any higher, where either they want you to break it, or there's just going to be a lot of death if you jump in the wrong direction a lot of just invisible walls and death. See, I'm walking through these things, but am I collecting them? Or are they just passing through me? Let's take a moment to see what happens here. Am I collecting these? Like this one right in front of the rock. If I am collecting these, they aren't adding to any heads-up display number. I it does seem like I'm capable of sucking up the life from them instead of touching them, but I don't know if they're not just reappearing when my back is turned. Like this one on the rock. Like when I look at them and I press the right trigger, it does seem like it's sucking them up. Let's see what happens when we try to give life. I must just not have the life seed ability yet. Alright, so let's see. When I try to give life to these creatures, doesn't seem like it works. And these guys don't stay still long enough that I think I could suck the life out of them, even if I wanted to. But I think maybe I did. Maybe, maybe not. Nope, it doesn't seem like you can suck life out of them. So, it's a kind of funny game experience now where they wanted to have a free-flowing, like parkour-esque experience where you're just constantly moving forward and constantly running, and to have to accomplish that, then they've given themselves more work by far. Apparently this access tunnel is blocked off. If I hit the back button, does that bring anything? No. It does show that there's an energy upgrade status, which we're probably going to get some life bars, which means we're going to need to use the life bars for something. Here's a map, but it's fairly worn out. And since we don't really have a "you are here" point, the map is fairly useless. I can see that this says north, so that direction according to the heads-up display is north, which still doesn't really help anything. And then you have like these cardboard cutouts as if this was some kind of like weird training facility. It could be that this is an alternate universe and leaf suits are fairly known technology. Northeast dig site. See if that helps us any to find out where we are. Archaeological dig site is, I guess, northeast. So we are, I guess, somewhere here. And this might be the military checkpoint where we are right now. In the forest. Yeah, it definitely does open up the door to have to spend a lot more time making... well, I guess there's no going back this way. Are we sure that's the right direction? I think so. Making bigger open world sections. Now we get a sound effect when we hit the ground. And you can kind of tell why it doesn't matter if you're male or female, because the only sound she's going to make, or he would make, if you're playing as a male, is a huh sound when they jump Interesting. Maybe the life I sucked up from that one spirit just left me in that. That felt like I lost some life that I had sucked up somehow. Um, Skyrim had a similar problem. They needed a do not dig site located northeast on trail. They had this. They needed a big room in rundown slopes that gain momentum to jump higher and further. Interesting. And so we may find that to be a very annoying system in general. And this is access tunnels. So these are probably going to be shortcut areas that we open up later. So we're going to run, and before we do this, we're going to run, and we're going to try and hit this, and we're going to try and fly. And if we fail miserably and end up down in this gutter, I don't think it really matters. Get a little bit of metal sound when stamping on metal, which is nice, but a little odd too, because if I take a step forward, there's a major delay in the sound effect. Major delay in that. Probably move slower running up hills too. Yep. Yeah, if I was a game director and I was running a small indie company that seems to have very few employees, I would definitely made it past the sign, which is nice. I wonder if these are kind of like achievements or challenges that will pop up, or things you just have to do if you want to do it. Yeah, I would definitely disallow. I guess that's just a wind sound. I would disallow the idea of a free-flowing open parkour game. That is a game that is more for the ambitions of EA back in the day when EA was ambitious. Not an indie developer. Like when you think about Mirror's Edge, even that development took a decent amount of a sales pitch and a decent amount of work to actually get finished, and it still didn't sell particularly as well as I imagine EA wanted it to sell. Of course, that is a consistent problem with EA, regardless of how much a game sells. And they, at best, just then made a reboot of the series called Mirror's Edge Catalyst, which also didn't really sell. Now, in all fairness, I think part of the problem with Mirror's Edge is that it was effectively telling a story of a futuristic dictatorship China, and so it got political against the one entity that most big video game companies don't want to get political against, which is the Chinese government. So doing a reboot to have it not be so obvious a statement, it's probably a smart idea, and they probably shouldn't have done that in the first place. It may have also hurt the Western sales that the main character was kind of Asian looking, compared to a game like this where you're not seeing the character's face, so you can better empathize with the character, or those who lack in empathizing skills can empathize better, I guess. I don't think I find it particularly hard to put myself in the shoes of a female character or an Asian character at all. But it probably did hurt sales a little bit. Here we have a very pretty waterfall. It's probably a case that this game looks way better than it ever would have looked before. Again, I have a pretty powerful video card. But I think even at that, we are probably going to approach a point where there's no there's no more technology that a DirectX 10 or a DirectX even 11 game can do to fix things. Like water flowing may be direct functions of DirectX, so it might be that Microsoft just improves that function and old games look better, whereas textures themselves, foliage textures in particular, are probably fairly limited, and without just a patch to redraw the textures, those elements won't improve. We definitely have examples of older games. Am I gonna make this jump? Nope, didn't make it that time. But I don't think that you'd help anything. Also, you have some fairly obvious bad physics being programmed here, where the water is just floating in the air and falling down. So at the right angle, this looks fairly nice, but at the wrong angle, it's completely immersion breaking. And see, we've nearly played for 40 minutes, or over 36 minutes, and we really need to step it up. If this is the entire game, then I guess maybe the game is doing us a favor by saying, yep, this is all we've got, this is what it's going to be. The whole time you're going to run and jump and run and jump, and we're going to highly encourage you to not take your time and look at all this pretty valley that we created. I could see myself definitely making the accusation that a game like this might have been half finished, and that there was original plans to use these valley layouts and these fairly large trees that have apparently been trimmed back at some point. You could definitely see that you just replace running and jumping with running and gunning, and you fill this forest with people shooting at you, and you would have a very standard first-person shooter game. So that is something that happens, and it's often hard to not to recognize that a game potentially has a very nice water, but I am afraid that I would just drown. You've kind of crippled yourself in the fact that now you're in this big metal suit that one assumes you can't just take off, even though that would be so logical. Yeah, there is a story element here that needs to be addressed in that idea. That they need to say, oh, no, you can't take off the suit. It's been fused to your body. Yeah, and to get back to the reel-to-reel intro thing, BioShock pretty much ruined that for everybody. Like, I don't think you would be able to do an intro sequence like that again for quite a while, and frankly, there's a new BioShock in development that will probably do it again, so it's just probably always going to be iconic with the BioShock series in some way, and everybody else is just not going to be able to use it. So you have to get fairly high speed to make a jump to start get the wind to get the wind sounds. Also, it's going to be a weird game if we do have enemies, in the fact that if we can suck the life out of people, because yeah, that's not something that you would normally expect. And this jump is more blind of a jump, but you can make it. I mean, you can get rather vertical, um, rather vertical jumps. But do we get electrocuted if we step in the water? No, you straight up drown. Interesting. Leaf suits are very heavy equipment. This makes water incredibly dangerous. Thanks for telling me, game. Here's where a AAA game would have put up some warning. Danger approaching water. Just like a water hazard on the heads-up display. Anything at all that... The checkpoint system does seem to be fairly useful, although I would say that the noise it made was a little bit abrupt and aggressive. So if we do get to points where we start dying over and over again because the jumps get harder, then it could get fairly annoying. Yeah, the music, I don't know. Like, it seems to me like the music is either not going to ever play, or it's just so incredibly infrequent. Energy stored within the leaf suit, known as amrita, can be given to once living things. So, press left trigger to shoot energy towards dead trees or animals. We use right trigger. Alright, so now we have a different cursor. We can bring back trees, which is great. At least one would think. Although it seems like there's a balance to the forest, as it were, and if you try to bring back all life, you're gonna have to go get some life from somebody else. Well, we died once. The next question is what happens when we run out of energy. Alright. And... well... we don't seem to have the ability to suck life yet. Oops. Probably was supposed to bring that back to life. Collect enough acorns to gain access through certain ancient doorways. Which seems like this would be a side quest, and apparently I just backed onto an acorn without even seeing it. Here we have another deer. I don't like the controller layout, I will say that. Like, doesn't seem like you can change it, but it seems like it's fairly bad idea to not be able to either use X or B to take life instead of having to use the right bump. Also, it seems like the D-pad is probably just gonna be... nope, you can't even walk with the D-pad. That's kind of weird. So you have to use the left stick to walk. So here's an acorn. I kind of would like to have seen the acorns be a little bit more glowy. It's seems like it's gonna be a bit of a hassle. And unfortunately, this dead deer and that dead spirit are gonna just have to stay dead. Unless we want to try and die and see if it resets us. Let's just die again and see what happens. It did refill our energy. Interesting. So, by refilling our energy, did it take all the energy that we'd set here? Because then you run into a problem like the Skyrim issue once again, where Skyrim save files kept getting bigger and bigger because every time you'd move a piece of cheese or sell or trade an item, that would still all be saved into the... where's that little spirit? Did it disappear? All of those things would be saved into the save file, so inevitably the inevitably the save files would just grow and grow and grow. Is this the little spirit guy? I swear I saw a little spirit guy, but maybe it was an acorn I saw. That would make more sense. It really wouldn't make a lot of sense that there would be a spirit guy that has life in it. But maybe we'll find out that that's exactly the case and I just missed an opportunity. There's a lot of room and opportunity here for goofing off. And so the deer seems to be possibly leading us in different directions. So are we supposed to follow the deer? It doesn't seem like we're particularly fast, as fast as the deer are. Yeah, I'm fairly certain that's what they wanted me to do. And you do get quite a bit of a push forward when you jump. Quite a bit of a push forward. So it might have been a case. Touch an orb to absorb its energy. We can do that now apparently. So previously that was just not something we could do, or we were absorbing the energy and it was already leaving us full. This is not a this is not something we can bring back to life, which brings about an interesting question. This is made out of wood, so at what point does something no longer maintain enough of its previous essence to be brought back to life? Does it only work on recently died things? And I imagine what's going to happen here is, and we'll wrap up this episode fairly quickly from once we find the life seed, unless this takes another 20 minutes to find the life seed. Imagine what's going to happen is that we will gain a bunch of life, bring a bunch of life to a part of the valley, and then something will happen and we'll have to suck all the life out of the valley again, and to cause a lot of death, or there will be a good ending and a bad ending. This again feels very BioShock inspired in the fact that the BioShock 1 game had you choosing to either save or kill the little sisters, and while you could in the short run get a larger reward if you killed the little sisters, you would be killing little girls, and only a sociopath would actually do that. So it was just this blatant on the nose obvious choice, and they don't even make it a legitimate choice in the sense that you don't actually get rewarded with more resources if you kill them. It would have been a much better decision if they had stuck with their guns and actually said, no, you actually do get more resources if you kill them, but then you have to live with it and the moral decisions there, and then you get the bad ending, which the bad ending in BioShock 1 is only a different cutscene. Unless this is like the only Leaf suit, which obviously it isn't because they wouldn't have painted all of this unless this was like the test course for the first Leaf suit. Or this is the first Leaf suit that actually worked appropriately. It seems highly unlikely you would be able to just find the life seed and nobody else would have been able to find it in the first place. Unless it were a situation. Oh, the X button actually does work. Interesting. So the B button might actually steal life too, and we just haven't gotten to that point. Let's see, X to hit that. Interesting. I did the wrong thing and it blew it up. I kind of struggled there to make that jump. So here we've got some more animals running around and a bird that literally just flew into us. Life can also be taken from nearby living things rich in energy, such as trees or animals to replenish your suit. Less robust life forms, such as a place of grass, provide no value. Tap this to suck life. I don't want to kill that. But the B button does work. And X. There you go. I killed you. Now you're back to life. So it does seem like we'll probably get to a point where it's like a bluebird that's kind of big. Probably will get to a point where you're going to have to make more of a choice. And I bet there are some more acorns all over the place. But honestly, you kind of need a detector. The game is at odds with itself in the sense that you could... And I definitely would feel better about stealing energy from a tree than I would from a living animal, because while the tree may be dead, it doesn't look as dead, and it didn't look as alive at the first place. And you could certainly live in some naivety and assume that the tree actually isn't dead. It's just lost a bunch of its life and it will grow back later on. It really feels like there should be some new mechanic we'll get that lets us walk on vines. Or perhaps give life to vines. Let's see. You can give life to them. You can take life away from them. But seemingly you can't walk on either of them. And as long as there's these little Pac-Man pellets, it kind of doesn't make sense. Unauthorized access within this area constitute a breach of security. What does that mean? Shouldn't it say unauthorized persons will be detained or shot? That would be more obvious. Excavation site. Like, what kind of civilian or spy cares about the security of the facility that they're breaking into? Quest updated. Find a way through the ancient ruins. Does kind of seem like we're going backwards and forwards here. And so that's a interesting door. It doesn't seem like it says give life to the trees. So trees effectively are going to be keys, and then fireflies and energy balls are going to be around the trees.
The Army calls this valley Area 634, but I've ascribed a new word for it. Susurrus. The beauty of that word seems to rival the majesty of this place. I suppose that would make its ancient inhabitants officially known as Susurians. To think these ruins have existed here for so long. They predate any known civilization on the continent. They seem to have infused the life energy from trees into their infrastructure, but how?
Well, which button am I pressing here? Seems like I can suck the life out of them and then give them life. That kind of keeps them still. Yeah, it also seems fairly silly for her to decide to put in a new name for an area. It just seems kind of artsy. And this is clearly just a challenge about can you do long range shots of the energy pellets, and no duh, of course. There's nothing shooting at you. There might be some boss fights in here where you have to suck the life out of things, and maybe the bosses or the creatures can suck the life out of you. And so you have to maybe try to avoid their shots while you take your shots. That's the logical way something like this should go. Press wide open crates. And we have an energy upgrade. Energy capacity is increased with capacitor upgrades. Find 4 to complete an energy canister. You can see that this is going to be sort of Legend of Zelda-esque, where we are going to try and find several collectibles to upgrade several things. But unlike most Legend of Zelda games, I don't think it's going to be a very large-scale game with lots of characters. Note to from a Pathfinder: I could watch these spirits all day, or sprites all day. I can't believe how friendly they are, brave enough to come right up to us. I guess they have no reason to fear us. We aren't natural predators to them after all. Yeah, I wanted to get to the life seed. It's kind of strange that it's taken over an hour to get to that point. Either this game is going to be shorter than I think it is, and it's not a particularly long game from what I've seen. But yeah, it seems like at most you have a collection of 10 energy cells, which would, you can't do anything with these pots still. Again, this feels like you're a little bit short. Scale feels off again. I find animators, and 3D animators in games, or just animators in general, do seem to have a tendency to kind of drop the ball when it comes to accurately depicting. You have to actually hit the trees. Like accurately depicting the scale of things. They tend to lose the reference. I think they want us to go all the way around to open this third one. See, this puts you in a weird position in the fact that
Luckily for me,
the
military is helping to explore all these ruins through the soldiers piloting L.E.A.F suits. They call these soldiers pathfinders since they can trek through terrain normally inaccessible to someone like me. Every guy back home's gonna want to go joyriding in a L.E.A.F suit. But until the military's project comes to a close, we're cut off from any contact outside the valley. I guess the world will have to wait just a bit longer to get their hands on these rides.
So it's kind of like this something terrible happened and killed all of them, sucked all the life out of them, I imagine. That'd be my guess. I wouldn't even be surprised if the spirits wandering around actually were the Russians. The Russian element on this might very well be a red herring too, but yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if the life seed just dissolved all of the humans in the valley, using falling momentum to break through cracked surfaces. Interesting. Which way is a cracked surface? That way. And over here, we've got nothing. We're dangerously approaching a point where having a flashlight might be useful. And that definitely is the case in a lot of games. And yeah, if I had decided to check. These medallions are said to be used to access an ancient pyramid, collect enough to gain entry to its chambers. Interesting. And some acorns, and acorns, and acorns. Alright. And that probably is the 3 collectibles in this game. And it would probably be nice if we could make the heads-up display a little bit smaller than what it is at 1080p resolution. Even playing this on a TV 10 feet away, the heads-up display is unnecessarily large. Let's jump forward and go to a loading screen. Soldiers piloting L.E.A.F suits leap effortlessly through the air. Functionality are known as Pathfinders. Their ability to manipulate life with running speeds up to 110 kilometers. Oops, SSD is too fast, and so I couldn't read all of that load screen tip. But I can say that my controller is now vibrating non-stop. It did stop when I paused and did not go back to vibrating. That tends to be a problem with a lot of games, is that they will turn on the vibrating function and then glitch out and not turn it off.
Just what are these glowing orbs that everyone is making a fuss over? They're absolutely beautiful. They seem to grow randomly throughout the valley. I know nothing about them other than that they are indigenous to this valley and that the army is using their energy for their war project.
They might be the souls of the dead.
It's such a shame. I wish they would just let them be. But I suppose it's the whole reason we're here to begin with.
Alright, well, we made it to this. Let's see where the travel goes. We have Wendigo Lake, which Wendigos are monsters, and we were at Ceressus Valley. That's where we are now. Interesting. It's an interesting idea to introduce that there might be Wendigos or monsters in this game. Cryptids of sorts. And we just saved, so the only thing I guess I can say is we'll wrap up this recording here. I'll exit out of the game and see if music starts playing. Like we've got little bits of sound effects playing in the background, certainly, but no actual music. And that this is just the place where we'll have to end this recording. It seems like our search for the life seed is going to be longer than I thought it would be. It might, at this rate, be that it takes the entirety of the game to actually get the life seed. Or that the life seed, we find it and then it runs away, or some bad guy steals it and then we go and try and find it some more. Or it'd be even a little bit more unique if it turns out the life seed doesn't actually exist at all. But yeah, that seems like that's going to be our main objective until we're given a better objective, which ideally you wouldn't have an objectives menu on the game if it's just going to say find the life seed, find the life seed, find the life seed. Compared to Bioshock 1, there was quite a lot of different side quests that you did and a lot of story and action that happened to the point where there's like 3 or 4 major acts in which you're trying to do fairly different things before you get to the end of Bioshock. And that's definitely how you'd want to tell a story, is to not bore people and have them do the same thing over and over again. I would say the energy upgrade status at the top there, with the silhouette of the life suit lower on in the lower right, um, does potentially indicate that we will get an upgrade for each part of that silhouette. I could see being able to jump higher and run faster and take less damage if you do take damage, and maybe shoot farther, although it doesn't seem like there actually is a distance limitation on how far you can shoot. That would be something I would put into a game like this if I had more budget. Certainly. Maybe see further or zoom in or see in the dark would be helpful. But yeah, I don't know what other abilities you're really going to give to a person like with a leaf suit without going too crazy with it. You could see in Portal 1, you're given a blue portal and an orange portal. That's all you do in the entire game, and you solve puzzles, and that worked very well because they put a lot of effort into it and a lot of polish into it, and Valve had the money to spend the effort and polish that. And it's even when they made the sequel Portal 2, they really only added a blue gel and a orange gel and maybe a green gel. I don't even think there was a green gel. And then they also added the concept of white paint made out of moon dust that plays a factor in a couple of puzzles. But they didn't go crazy with it. You still are mostly using the blue and orange portal in Portal 2. So had Chell in the Portal series in Portal 1 or Portal 2 been given a gun at some point and she could have shot back at the turrets, that might have been interesting as a action sequence at the end of the game, but it would have really broken the spirit of what the puzzle game was in the first place and the focus of what the game was. So I'm glad that didn't happen, although that might be an interesting mod. Anyways, we've already gone an hour. That's going to be it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want to friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below in the description box. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.